Hey, y'all, welcome back to the Relentless Love podcast. We are in, I think, episode 5. Thank you so much for hanging in there if you've been following us this season or even over the past year or two. If it's your first time, welcome. I hope you go back and check out the other episodes. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, do all the things so you can stay in the loop. I'm sorry I'm a little late on this one. It's that busy time of year, but I'm excited to hop back on and continue the conversation about the shaping of a woman, which shaped me in my individual life. And again, regardless if you're a woman, a man, married, single, hopefully there are some tips, some wisdom, some encouragement and hope that you can glean from my story. Last time I shared a lot about my origin story and how different things that happened in my childhood and earlier years shaped me in my womanhood. But today I want to focus on my young adult years and just that middle stage and how that impacted my life and shaped me into the woman that I am. And just an alert, next time I will focus on marriage, married life, being in ministry, being in business, and how that shaped me as a woman. So definitely plan to tune in next week. You are not going to want to miss that. But I'm excited to dive in. So just a quick story. I was trying to think. I have so many stories from my young adult years. But one that came to mind, I was just reflecting on just the influence, the different people that God surrounded me with. Well, let me back up a bit. So Brock and I have always been passionate about pouring into young adults because a lot of our a lot of transformation that happened in our lives was in those young adult years. And so me coming to Christ happened. I'll actually be celebrating 20 years as a born again believer on March 26th. And then I got baptized in April 2006. So it's a special time. It's actually a special month for me. I mentioned too, I just turned 42. It's my birthday month. So March is just, springtime. It's newness, it's growth. And that's the beauty of the young adult years, right? You are stepping out for the first time, learning who you are apart from your family of origin, learning who you are beyond high school and, the different personas and labels that we pick up during that time. It's the first time that you step out and, you're trying to figure it out and it's not easy. And so that's why with Transform Us Movement, we developed a program to help young adults find themselves. And it was birthed out of our own struggles. I'm going to share a little bit about that, but I do it in depth in our Compass journey. So shout out to the Compass journey that is for young adults, but I also have one for women. And the online course will be coming out very soon. So stay tuned for that. But let me think of what story I want to share from my young adult years. Oh my gosh. So, well, let me share a fun fact. So not everybody knows that actually in my young adult years, I actually worked as a crime scene technician for about 3 years. So I was, gosh, from 19 to 21, I want to say, that I was working for the New Orleans Police Department. And I was considered a civilian, but we worked very closely with the police officers. So I worked the night shift. That's right, the night shift, processing crime scenes, anywhere from a burglary, robberies, murder, suicide. I mean, the whole nine. And I saw a lot. I saw so much at that young age. I mean, very traumatic things. And so, yeah, that's an interesting fact about me. And as I share more of just my young adult years and how it shaped me, I had so many experiences that me just exploring who I was and what I was passionate about contributed to the person that I am today and the value I bring to my clients as I'm coaching, to marriages that I do coaching with or mediations with. And so, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. So, last time, I'm trying to think where I stopped off. Yeah, I think I focused a lot on just the struggle I had with self-love and self-esteem because I came from a broken home, because my parents were divorced at 9, and that complex that I developed, also because I was a middle child, just not feeling loved, not feeling accepted, not feeling like I had a place of belonging. So a lot of my self-worth and self-esteem and a sense of identity was tied to my performance, tied to my achievements, both academic and athletics. And so a lot of that really spilled over into my young adult years. So I went to college in New Orleans, went to Loyola University, and there I was studying forensic chemistry. And so again, just trying to make my own way. I was working full time, just crazy, working full time. And at one point, I was working 2 full-time jobs while also carrying a full load in a science degree. So that just shows that, like, the reason I can do a lot of the things I do now is because God just wired me with a big capacity. I had 2 very hardworking parents. So anyway, I've always been this way, good, bad, or indifferent. But anyway, so that was a lot to carry. And again, because of my broken upbringing, I had this mentality that I had to take care of myself. Nobody was going to do it for me, right? And so that's why I worked so hard and was just driven. There was even a point where, I didn't have a cosigner to continue my lease for my apartment. And that's one of the reasons that I bought a home for the first time at 19 years old. It was God's grace in my life, but I didn't recognize it at the time. I was not a believer. I believed in God, but I wasn't a true follower and disciple of Jesus at the time. And so for me, one of the biggest things that shaped me as a woman was at the age of 21. This is 2005. Again, I'm 3 years into this job at the police department, which for me was a stepping stone to a future in forensic chemistry or being an FBI profiler, whatever I decided to do. It was a stepping stone. And so I thought I had it figured out. Like, I felt like I had a clear plan for my life, but it wasn't what God had in mind. And so for me, I also remember this moment of looking in the mirror and really questioning myself, like, who am I? Because again, I mentioned last time, because I didn't feel loved, because I didn't feel accepted, I often leaned too heavily into relationships and sexual promiscuity, all of these things, to feel a sense of love and value. And so obviously it only snowballs. The older you get, when you have more freedom, you have your own place. And so I remember this moment right before Hurricane Katrina, thinking, who am I? On the outside, I look like I had it all together. I look like I had it figured out, but I wasn't proud of some of the choices I was making because, I'm again vulnerable because of this brokenness. Remember, we talked about those deep needs that were not being met for me, and I'm trying to fill them in all the wrong places. And so when Hurricane Katrina hit, I actually worked for the police department. So because of that, I was considered essential personnel. So I actually had to stay in New Orleans in the midst of the storm, even up to 4 days after the storm. And so being 20, 21 years old, that was traumatic. And, maybe in August when, the anniversary of Katrina, maybe I'll share more about my experience. But man, that totally disrupted my world. Right. And so already being a young adult is hard. You're trying to figure it out. But then you add this catastrophic, traumatic natural disaster into the equation. And so it totally rocked my world. Primarily because school was now on pause. I couldn't work. I couldn't go to school. And that was my whole world revolved around what I was doing, right? How I could perform, what I was achieving. So when that was all disrupted and at a halt, it forced me to look inward and really do some soul searching of, man, who am I? What am I apart from the things that I do? And I was just so broken. I went into this period of depression for about 6 months. In that process of, trying to recover from Hurricane Katrina, I ended up deciding to move to Texas. The guy I was dating at the time was there. And so I went to visit and just never looked back. And so in that time of me soul searching in a period of depression, I found Jesus. And so that was really the beauty of that trauma, of that tragic experience, is it was awakening for me, a wake-up call. So that's one huge thing. I think the beauty of being a young adult, you're now away from home, you can explore different um choices faith wise. And hopefully, if you were raised in the church, you don't stray from that, but it strengthens your faith. For me, I didn't grow up in the church per se. And so it was a great opportunity. The struggles pushed me into faith, it led me closer to the Lord, and that radically transformed my life. And so I'll talk next time, as I said, about in that time of finding the Lord, I also found my husband. But I want to drill down a little bit more in that young adult phase of when I came to Christ. It also unlocked a lot of untapped potential that I had. So I remember once I got involved in the church in the Houston area, it was a great Bible teaching church, small church. And so when you're a part of a small church, you kind of wear different hats. You kind of get in where you fit in and serve wherever you can. And I ended up helping with the youth dance ministry. They had praise dance, and man, it reminded me of the joy that I had in high school when I would do choreography. I would get, be in a group of friends and help put choreography together. And that was a passion that I kind of put on the shelf, because for me, success was, how much money can I make? How many degrees can I have? And so it was interesting that I was able to bring that full circle and begin studying dance. And so I want to pause for a minute, because one thing I forgot to mention, I was, I think, going into my third year of college when Hurricane Katrina hit. And I've always had a high value for higher education. Again, if it was up to me, I would have a PhD by now. But in my experience, I think for me, more education was building this sense of kind of my value and worth coming from how many letters I had behind my name. So for me, when I chose to follow Christ, one of the things I had to kind of surrender and give up was that desire and drive to achieve more, to be more educated, because of it, it was like a humbling period for me. So as much as I tried to go back to school, finish my education, there was always a block. There was always a wall. So I had several attempts, but even to this day, I still don't have a college degree. I actually have enough credits to have a degree, but it just was not a part of the journey God had. And for me, I believe it's because it's a reminder that I have to depend on Him and His favor to open doors for me. It's not my intellect. It's not how smart I am, how hardworking I am. It is sheerly the favor of God opening a door for me that no man can close. So I want to encourage you, if you don't have a degree, it does not mean you cannot be successful. Again, I'm an advocate for higher education, but it is not for everyone. And I want you to know you can be successful. So I just wanted to throw that out because for me, that's a part of the shaping. I had to surrender that. And it forced me to really depend on God in a different way, because I didn't always have the opportunities that a degree allows for. So anyway, in being in the church, serving in the church, and rediscovering my passion for dance, man, I just came alive. It built a lot of leadership skills in me. Um, but I realized I was limited in my skills and my language, the language of dance. And so that inspired me to go back and get educated in dance. So at 23 now, I'm 23 years old, going back to study dance was an interesting journey. It's very humbling, because if you know the dance world, most dancers are young, they start young. And so for me, starting later in life, was like, man, a fish looking like I didn't belong, but I was just determined. I was following the leading of the Lord. And so anyway, long story short, that time of studying dance, I began to thrive. The anointing of God was on my life. The favor of God was on my life. And so I actually got invited to a summer intensive, the Debbie Allen Dance Institute, and went through that intensive, and then was invited to, I won a scholarship to go to her institute in California. And unfortunately, I think I've told this story before, in season one, maybe, that because I got married and then we got pregnant with Savion right away, I wasn't able to fulfill that. But for me, what it showed me is that when God calls you to something, it doesn't matter how inadequate you feel, it doesn't matter how much experience you have. God was causing me to excel very quickly in my dance studies and in the dance world in a way that's really unheard of. And so for me, it just showed me that I could trust him when he's telling me to do things that don't make sense, or that I don't feel qualified to do, that he would be with me. And so that was a real faith builder for me. So yeah, learning about myself, my gifts. I also just got to be surrounded by amazing women of God, and that was a huge part of my shaping as a woman. I remember I was so hungry to learn and grow in my faith. So every prayer meeting there was, not just in my church but like other churches in the surrounding area, I would go and meet these incredible prayer warriors. And so that shaped me into the intercessor that I am. And so one of the most dynamic ways God uses me is in praying for people. So trust me, even if you don't need coaching, if you need prayer, don't hesitate to reach out, send a text, and email. I would be honored to pray with you and for you. But yeah, I've just seen God move in amazing ways over the years. Not by my strength or my might, but by his spirit. He's done extraordinary things. And so that was a huge part of my shaping. I also had this amazing friend, shout out to Coco, who I met in Houston. Man, we actually met in massage therapy school. That's a whole other story, y'all. Again, young adult years, you can experiment with different things and find yourself. But funny story, I had to give up my massage therapy because Mr. Jones was not having it. He was like, "You are not going to be putting your hands on men and all this." So I had to let my license expire. But anyway, I met Coco at massage therapy school in Houston. And again, I'm there, no family, no real friends yet. And so she just took me under her wing, and I lived with her for a season. So I got to see her model the Christ life in a way that was so authentic and real. She is who she is. So she was unapologetic about the gospel, but also unapologetically her, and just really being who she is, showing up like with full confidence and embracing her unique personality and her spiritual gifts. Like, man, she would just, like, God would just speak through her in a way that would just pierce through people, but it wasn't intimidating. She was so approachable. I also got to watch her take other young women into her home, and she discipled people in a way that I believe Jesus discipled his followers. And so that taught me a lot about discipleship. So that was a huge part of my shaping, just seeing people live out their faith in their own unique way, which is why me and my husband are the way we are. When people like her, especially Coco and other people that God brought along the way, just showed me what it looks like to do life with people, to meet them where they are, but not leave them there, and kind of coach them up, mentor them up, disciple them up to be everything God called and created them to be. So all of these pieces of my story is why I'm so passionate about helping people figure out their own purpose, their own calling, their own identity in the Lord. And that's, but for me, it was walking through so many broken periods. Before I met Coco, there was a point I was living out of my car. I spoke about that on another podcast recently. So, I was pillar to post for a while, as my mom would say, living with different people, and all of that broke me. I remember having to ask people for gas money, and, being somebody who worked hard, always took care of myself. I was this independent woman. That was one of the most humiliating things, but I had to shift my mindset. It wasn't humiliating. It was a humbling. It was a breaking that really taught me how to lean on the Lord, trust the Lord, seek him to provide. And he did. I remember getting a check in the mail one day for $400 when I was believing him to provide for something. So anyway, man, it's just, I'm so thankful for the hardship that I've had to walk through, even before, getting married. And y'all, some of y'all know me and Brock's story and the loss we experienced. I went through so many hardships in those young adult years, from Katrina to being homeless. and all those things, so many more things. I may even talk about the sexual assault that I experienced working at the police department at some point. But all of that shaped me into the woman that I am, the empathy I have for women, the wisdom, knowledge, and experience that I learned the hard way that I'm willing to share with others. So I want to encourage you, just a few takeaways that I hope you glean. Again, whether you're a man, woman, married or not, there's just some universal principles that I hope you take away. Number one, it's okay to come out of high school to enter the young adult years not knowing what's next. For me, I actually knew what was next. I had a plan, but it was not God's plan. So I want to say, if you have a plan, you want to be open-handed with that. I tell my couple clients that, and even my individual, my personal coaching clients, we can make plans, but God's way is what's going to prevail. He knows what's best for you. He has a plan for you that is good and perfect. And so it's good to plan. It's good to set goals, but we have to have open hands and not cling so tightly to it and try to control and steer our life. We need him to order our steps and to follow his lead. But if you don't have a plan, all the better. It's a great opportunity to lean into him, let the pressure kind of melt away, because the truth is he has a plan. And so as you seek him, as you draw close to him, the word says that he will draw close to you and he will begin revealing that plan. But don't be afraid to go on that self-discovery journey. Like I said, after doors were shut and school let out, I just went for it. I realized the shortness of life even back then. And so I just tried everything. I tried massage therapy. I went back to school to study dance. There were some other things that I did that I can't explain for time's sake, but use your young adult years, or maybe you've gone through a divorce or you're in transition, you're an empty nester. Use this transition period to experiment with different things. Try things that have been burning in your heart, or maybe they've been dormant for years. Now is a great opportunity to step out on faith, and why not just go for it? Don't have any regrets. So I encourage you to use either your young adult years or transition to explore, experiment, and discover your passions. And if you need help with that, reach out. That's a great reason to get some coaching. We can kind of figure those things out together. And last but not least, embrace the highs, but also the lows. The hardship. My young adult years, that middle period was really like a wandering in the wilderness period for me. But I learned so much about myself. I learned an incredible amount about the Lord, not just a head knowledge, but a heart knowledge and experiential knowledge that really fortified my faith in Jesus Christ. And a lot of that is what prepared me for marriage. I tell couples all the time, you don't want to wait or believe that your spouse is going to complete you. You need to have your own sense of identity and purpose and calling before you even are ready for marriage. And so sometimes that comes through some hard things. And so don't be afraid, be encouraged if you're walking through a hard season, that whatever it is, God can and will work it together for good. He'll work it out for good. Just keep your eye on the prize. But you need a vision. And so anyway, I hope you got something encouraging, something challenging for you. I know we're celebrating Women's History Month, but men, we need you. You are a huge part of women becoming who they're supposed to be, whether you're a father, the influence you have in your daughter's lives, if you're a husband, you speaking life over your wife and also creating space for her to rise up and emerge in her womanhood is incredible. And if you're single, knowing what to expect. So I hope you're encouraged hearing some of my story, that woman, that wife in waiting that you're waiting to find. God is shaping her. And so I challenge you and encourage you to ask the Lord to shape you and prepare you to be the king, to be the leader that she needs you to be when she does come. And so anyway, women are incredible. God made them so fearfully and wonderfully. And I hope y'all keep celebrating women. Man, we are pillars in families, in the church community, and in society. So thank y'all for tuning in. Remember, next time I will share about how marriage and motherhood have shaped me as a woman. And there'll be a lot of good stuff. And then the last week of this month, my son and I think we're going to get on together and share about just our journey in, man, college research and college touring. And hopefully you'll get some tips and or share some wisdom for me, because we are still praying through it. But love you guys. Thank you for tuning in.